Good day, everyone. Welcome to Global Government News. I'm Darko. Today is Tuesday, October 5th, 2010. And this first article I have up here is not really an article. It's from tradingeconomics.com, and I recommend to check out this website. Just want to say right off the bat, I'm glad to be covering the news. I've been kind of busy lately, working on other things. But I'm looking forward to covering some of the news such as Big Brother and surveillance and economics and all the other good stuff, including eugenics. So here is the U.S. GDP growth rate, and I'll go down to the little article that they have written. It's not long, and I won't read it all, but it says, and this was from 10/2/2010, so it's fairly recent. It says the U.S. economy grew at a 1.7% annual rate in the second quarter, marking the start of a slowdown in growth that has concerned the Federal Reserve. All right, so I'll be covering an article too later in this video where you get to hear what the Federal Reserve is going to be doing. It says the loss of 8.4 million jobs caused by the recession, which ended in June 2009 officially, has taken a toll on consumer confidence and spending. The housing market is yet to show sustained growth in the absence of a government tax credit for buyers. At the same time, corporate profits gains indicate business investment, which has been the mainstay for manufacturing and the recovery, will keep growing, albeit at a slower pace. The U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis report showed consumer spending, which accounts for about 70% of the economy, rose at a 2.2% pace last quarter, the fastest since the first 3 months of 2007, and more than 2% the government estimated last month. Spending added 1.54 percentage points to the GDP in the second quarter. It says household spending figures for August due tomorrow may show a 0.3% gain following a 0.4% increase in July, according to Bloomberg. It says right here, today's report showed the trade gap was revised to $449 billion from $445 as imports climbed more than previously estimated. The deficit subtracted 3.5 percentage points from growth, the biggest reduction since record-keeping began in 1947. Said bigger gains in inventories contribute to 0.82 percentage points to second quarter. And moving on, it says corporate profits increased 3%, the smallest gain since a decrease in the final 3 months of 2008 that today's report showed. Said they were up 10.5% in the first quarter. It says earnings rose 37% from the second quarter of 2009, indicating companies have the means to lift spending on new equipment and pay. And of course, the Fed's preferred price gauge, which is tied to consumer spending and strips out food and energy costs, climbed at a 1% annual pace. Policymakers in their statement last week said that inflation is, quote, somewhat below levels consistent with the central bank's congressional mandate for stable price. This next one's from cbo.gov, and this is information straight, I guess you could say, from the horse's mouth. So if you look at the economic outlook and fiscal policy, little summary here, it says the economic outlook, the CBO expects, as do most private forecasters, that the economic recovery will proceed at a modest pace during the next few years. In its projections released in August, the CBO forecast that under current laws governing federal spending and revenues, real, in parentheses, inflation adjusted GDP would increase by 2.8% between the fourth quarter of 2009 and the fourth quarter of 2010, and by 2% between the fourth quarters of 2010 and 2011. With economic growth so slow, the unemployment rate would remain above 8% until 2012. And of course, they're not telling you that it's the real unemployment rate. Just got to throw that out there. So that's not good news for a lot of those people out there that are unemployed. They're talking about another couple of years till it even picks up and it trickles down to you, right? And it says it's above 6% until 2014. It says since the CBO completed that forecast, the economic data released have been weaker than the agency had expected. Oh, really? So if CBO was redoing the forecast today, it would be projected slightly slower growth in the near term. And I'm just going to read this part right here and move on to articles, news articles. It says I'm sorry, the pace of recovery since the recession ended in June 2009 and the growth that the CBO projects for the next few years are anemic relative to the rate of recovery following previous deep recessions. However, the most recent recession, spurred by financial crisis, no, it was spurred by, fraud and coercion and stealing and all that good stuff, where, of course, the people, the consumers who were screwed over, then turned into taxpayers and then paid for the people who screwed them over. It says, was unlike any this country has been seen or has seen for a very long time, and there is a reason to expect that the country's recovery will also be different from past ones. And that's because the manipulation and the frauds become more sophisticated as they steal more and more and larger, bigger amounts of digital currency. It says international experience suggests that recoveries from recessions that begin with financial crises tend to be slower than average. Following such a crisis, it takes time for equity and asset markets to recover, for households to replenish their resources and boost their spending. It says for financial institutions to restore their capital bases and for businesses to regain their confidence required to invest in a new plant and equipment. In other words, get suckered back into this fascist corporatist market, right? Because that's what they're doing right now. Oh yeah, the markets are back and people are feeling confident. I'm hearing it when I'm going into the bank, hearing these independent, I guess you could say they're business owners or small business owners. You can tell because they're just kind of like own like a siding company or something, And like, oh yeah, business is picking up. Yeah, it's really picking up. And I'm just thinking, I'm in my mind, it's just, this is sick. It's not even a free market. It's not real capitalism, and it's all manipulated. And these people don't have a clue. They're just kind of like, well, I just go with the flow and wherever it takes me, But anyways, it says the weak demand for goods and services resulting from those various factors is the primary constraint on economic recovery. In other words, because people's money and their futures, i.e., all the borrowing that went on in the past 2 years, played a role in people not having the money to spend, which is 2/3 of the economy, right? So people just flat out don't have money to spend. So here we go. But it says that big corporations and corporate profits do. So I'm going to have to blitz through these. I'm not going to be able to actually read them, but they're kind of older, from September 6th, some of them. And I'll move into newer, more recent articles. These are the ones that over the past month I never really got to. It says Obama sails GOP promotes new jobs program. So see, he's going to create jobs. And how is he going to do that? Well, he's going to spend more money that doesn't exist off people who aren't even born yet. It says a combative President Barack Obama rolled out a long-term jobs program Monday that would exceed $50 billion to rebuild roads, railways, runways, and couple it with a blunt campaign season assault on Republicans for causing Americans hard economic times. So there you go. They're going to spend money on the roads, which is a sunken cost. In my mind, it's a sunken cost. It says aging gas pipes at risk of explosion nationwide. When I see these stories, it always makes me wonder, what is the real motive behind it, It says a tragic explosion of a gas pipeline in the San Francisco suburb has shed light on a problem usually kept underground. I like that play on words. Communities have expanded over pipes built decades earlier when no one lived there. So now they got to fix the infrastructure. This one's from September 2nd. UN climate funds shouldn't divert poverty aid. The UN climate chief says poor countries are right to expect that any funding they receive to combat global warming be kept separate from development aid or poverty relief. And I don't know if I'm reading this correctly or accurately, but the way I'm receiving this is that, well, after all the rhetoric and fear-mongering that goes on around the climate change theory and how it causes poverty and food shortages and all this stuff right here, right? If that theory really holds, then this money should be going towards these people that are affected by climate change. But I guess what they're saying is, no, we want the money to go into the private corporations' hands and a little carbon scam, their hands. So That's how I read that. I don't know if I'm wrong, but it says future hiring will mainly benefit the high skilled. Whenever companies start hiring freely again, job seekers with special skills and education will have plenty of good opportunities. Others, who are most of the population, will face a choice: take a job with low pay or none at all. It says job creation will likely remain weak for months or even years. Now, I'll go on and say years because we just read it right from the government themselves, saying 2012 to 2014. But once employers do step up hiring, some economists expect job openings to fall mainly into two categories of roughly equal numbers. And that's just like the human race that's going to be split off into two separate species. Well, the elites and the plebs. The short, fat, stocky, parasitic entities. Sorry, but that's basically how they see us. Strikes in France, London foreshadow more protests. This is French strikers disrupted trains and planes and hospitals and mail delivery Tuesday amid massive street protests over plans to raise the retirement age. You like that, guys? They're going to be doing that in here, and if they haven't already in the UK, raising the retirement age so you can work longer and earn less. Fears of a second recession ease, at least for now. And this is from the 9th of September. No, the economy isn't roaring ahead, and no, companies aren't making a lot of job offers. But a fresh batch of economic data Thursday at least eased summertime fears that the economy might be on the brink of another recession. So there you go. And more, well, kind of not really telling the truth, but China's inflation edges up. This is from September 11th. Driven by food costs, China's inflation edged higher in August as the nation's worst flooding in decades drove an increase in food costs, and industrial growth continued to quicken, just like the Russian fires and droughts that depleted it was either wheat or grain supply. So, like I said, eugenics, right? It's you just always have to go to what is the result. What is the end result? It's culling the population. Investors prepare for volatility. This is investors are using options to brace for the big swings next week as Wall Street enters the peak of the most volatile month for stocks historically. Obama taps Goolsbee as top White House economist. This is President Barack Obama on Friday named a member of his inner circle as top White House economist and gave a strong personal endorsement to a leading candidate to run his new Consumer Protection Bureau. And this is, of course, Goolsbee, and I know Webster Tarpley, an author. He knows a lot more than I do about this individual, but I do know that he is in with that clique, the Adolf Volcker clique, high inflation clique, and high taxes, and lowering your standard of living clique. So it cannot be good to have him. Actually, I think he's Skull and Bones. Now that I think about it, Goolsbee is Skull and Bones. I don't know if it's him or his father, but that's pretty much all we need to know. Cuba to cut 500,000 government workers, reform salaries. Cuba announced Monday it will cast off at least 500,000 state workers by early next week and reduce restrictions on private enterprise to help them find new jobs. Oh, that's nice of them. But yeah, that's the sticky, slippery slope that you have to deal with when you're talking about going from a communist to a fascist economic and social system. Jobs are going to be cut, government jobs, when things are privatized, like they will be here in the U.S. with the public water supply and that. Financial system Achilles heel of recovery, IMF. This is from October 5th, 2010. Financial woes continue to dog the global economic recovery, the IMF said Tuesday, as it warned about considerable uncertainty. Oh, wow, that's kind of like Bernanke said, I think he was quoted as saying unusual uncertainty. From the LA Times, $69 million in California welfare money drawn out of state and goes to Las Vegas and Hawaii, Miami, and Guam for vacations. Bloomberg, some 3,000 millionaires claim jobless benefits, IRS data show. Bloomberg, Wall Street sees world economy decoupling from U.S., and of course they say we drug them into it. Gold hits record above $1,300 as dollars slide. Debtors jailed in Ohio despite laws against Australia's economic growth comes at expense of workers' wages and conditions, report propaganda. We've never been better despite crisis. Wall Street Journal, Fed official calls for aggressive action. They want inflation to rise. TV, households facing hefty energy austerity plans delay jobs. UK prisoners